So as I was mentioning, what we're looking at is a way of approaching your questions. You could even start considering your extended response assessment task in what we're doing here now. But there's a structure to it. So when you're in the HSC and creating one, you've got to create questions that have certain amounts of marks allocated to them and are of certain difficulty. The way to get those marks is the secret. This isn't going to be an essay writing lesson, because in the industrial technology course you don't really write what's called a structured essay. You do what they call a structured extended response. So the whole idea of having a really good introduction, a body, conclusion, it doesn't work as the overall answer. And a lot of students waste their time putting in a massive introduction, repeating themselves in the body, and then putting in a conclusion that's not necessary. So we're also trying to cut to the chase in our answers, but still get maximum marks. These are the common terms you'll find in industrial technology. I suggest you note them down. You need to become familiar with them. Notice that I've put list, name, identify. They're three different ways of saying the same thing. In the Board of Studies terms, it's identify, but you might see name or list. Outline can sometimes be what. No.
Explain.
Describe and explain are those ones. So describe, explain, they tend to be what they are. However, you might get something like how and why. And sometimes you've got to decipher that question. Then evaluate and discuss. I'm not going to touch those today because we won't have time. But outline, describe and explain, and identify, all tier up slowly. So your low end or low order questions are these ones. Sometimes students will answer one of these with that. And that's the problem. So if you answer a describe question with a list, so you put in all your dot points and list ideas, I'm sorry, you're still going to get low marks. Doesn't matter how good the points are, you're not writing the answer the right way. So I've given you an example here of list, name, identify. Now, this one I went into the industry section because it's pretty simple. Name a tool commonly used in your industry. That's really simple. I mean, you could say hammer. You could say computer, because it's such an open question. Notice this red. What I've done is created what I call this traffic light approach. So name, list and identify are usually 1 to 2 marks. That's as far as it goes. Maximum 2 marks. If this was a 2-mark question, it would probably say name 2 tools used in your industry. But because it says name a tool, it's a 1-mark question. You said router, great, there's your 1 mark. You said Photoshop, great, 1 mark. It's as simple as that. But they're not high order questions. So we move on to outline. Now, these are great. I bet a lot of teachers tell you, oh, sketch in general terms indicate the main features of, but what does it actually mean? Can you tell me what that means? Yep.
A brief overview of what it is, but don't get into too much detail.
Yeah, but at what point do you say there's too much detail? And what point is it brief? This is, I think, the vague point, and this is where you've got to be careful. But you're right. You're absolutely right. A key thing to look at is how many marks are being allocated. It's a really good indicator of how much depth you need to go into. This one here would be a 3-mark question. It says outline advantages, so it's plural. Whenever you get a plural, it means they're expecting 2 or more. of automation. I've written in an answer. Advantages of automation are that the costs, so there's my identifying an advantage, is the cost. And quality consistency is the other identification. Now, if you just mention those, 1 to 2 marks maximum. More likely 1 out of the 3. However, if you start outlining it, so showing the costs of wages are reduced for the employer, now we've got a little bit more detail. Not a lot of detail, as you said, but a little more. And we needed advantages, plural. So you'll notice there's 2 instances. Oh, thank you. Just leave it there. That'll be fine. 2 instances of that orange highlight there. And this is my traffic light concept. So your red is your 1 to 2 marks. You'll never get any more than that. Doesn't matter what sort of question it is. You stay in that listing, just your points. Don't expect too much. You get to the outline. You're going to add that little bit more information. Link it back a bit more to the question. Now, describe is a bit of a funny one. This is why I've got 2 in here. And again, if you see a describe for 3 marks as opposed to a describe for 6 marks, there's going to be a big difference. So I've given you an example here. Describe an impact of automation on product quality. That could be a question quite easily. However, it can only really be 3 marks because I'm only describing 1 impact. As opposed to describe issues, we're specialising in a single product. That one's worth 6 marks. I haven't written an answer to that one on purpose. This is one of the little exercises the multimedia guys will have. But the quality of product that is automatically produced, notice I've said this massive sentence here, it's not worth a lot at this point. We need it, but it's not worth marks in itself. Consistency is my point, that's that 1 mark. Due to repetitive precision of the machines used to automate production, as human workers cannot be as consistently precise over long periods of time. Bit more than an outline, isn't it? It's bringing in characteristics and features. So you need to bring in at least 2 details about what you're talking about. Can you see how that plural point's really important and how the marks are important? Move on to the next one. This is where you join in on this. Explain. Now, you'll notice here, there's relate cause and effect, make relationships between things, provide why and or how. Miss Rayner happened to walk past as I was putting this together and she said, oh, she looked at this and went, I wouldn't do that. And I said, yeah. She said, oh, we'd do cause, effect, cause, effect. And I went, yeah, so that's there. However, we're doing this part. Yep. We're doing a how or why. Now, I started an answer on the next slide, but before I get there, you're going to help me fill in this part. So, as a class, can you tell me some reasons why? And we're just going to identify at this point. Oh, yep. Okay, yep, you could grab from what I said earlier. What, consistent quality or increased quality? Yep. All right, yep.
As an advertisement tool for their main feature.
Yeah, I think you're...
BMW, then they make stuff.
That's like they're already doing it. They're going to choose to do that as an advertisement process. I'm not sure that that's got a direct relationship. Okay. Yeah, I know where you're going with it, but it's not as clear.
Reputation.
Sort of what you're saying. Yeah, so what? Because they've got a reputation in it? Is that what you're saying?
So
Okay.
our company that makes washing machines, they specialize in making parts.
Yeah, you're talking about specialisation in itself. Yes.
Get a step ahead of one competition.
Yep. Notice that all this is an identification at this point. It's great. You could list it out of your 6 marks, or 9 marks in this case. You're probably going to get 2 at this point. Can anyone think of any other reasons? Now, I'm not sure, Tim, the guys, have you done specialisation yet? You have? You sort of went, not really, maybe. That's a worry. Is that a yes or a no? You think you have? Excellent. I'll just put it in here. Yep. What's that? You have done it?
Sure.
Yes, okay, we'll stop there because it's a good example. Okay, so we've got quite a few here. You can debate whether you've done it or not later because really this is about how to answer. Okay, so don't worry too much yet. I'll just wait till I've got everyone's attention again. In the marking criteria, that list will be 1 to 2. Then they'll have 3 to 4 or 3 to 5, and then 5 to 7. Those will be a mixture of whether you get enough of this green area of actually why this is a good reason. Did you have a question back there? Because, like I said, I don't want to talk over you or anything. Okay, good. Why it's a benefit, because that's obviously why you're going to choose it. But if you just describe the reason, so let's describe the reason of increase of quality. What is it? How do we increase quality by specialising? Excellent, yeah. Great. What else? You could put more in there if you wanted to. But you're describing that an increase in quality means that, yep, you got one? Yep. We've now described what we mean by that increase in quality. This is actually more leaning into the green area of the personnel's knowledge, but the increase in quality results from that focusing of resources, which could be the personnel, the production processes, what money you spend on materials, whatever it happens to be, into the one product. And of course, if you're going to do that, you're going to increase the quality. What I just said there would fit in here. Do you see what I mean? I sort of gathered it all together and brought it back to the question why I would choose it. So I'm just going to give you a little example beyond here. So some of you will be used to really long introductions, say in English or HSIE. Don't really need it here. But at that top there, I've probably already got three marks out of the 9. Just in that one sentence. It's not quite listing. It's got a bit of, if you want, outlining going on. But it's here when I start adding the detail. So in this case, I picked a few areas. Minimise costs of materials is the reason I'd specialise. And also the costs of production. Take advantage of niche markets and reduce the size of the business itself. Sometimes when you've got a really massive company And we were using the example of Apple for multimedia. Apple actually reduced in size originally. They stopped making so many different products and just concentrated on a PC market, but then they started concentrating on the iPad and the iPhone. So they stopped diversifying, and all of a sudden they became the front runner in probably one of the largest growing areas at that time. So there's reasons to do it. And what's the main reason most business decisions happen?
Money.
Money, yeah. You can't put that in straight away. You've got to lead to that point. So you notice, I didn't quite finish this. I don't say less cost to the company straight away. I leave it till the end. It's like that concluding point. What I want you to do today is see if you can answer that question. However, if some people are unclear on specialisation, it might be a little difficult. Maybe you want to try one of the earlier questions. I can put both up. You don't have to write it out. What I'm saying is plan the answer, because what this is doing is helping you answer your assessment task. And if you happen to have the assessment task there, maybe you want to start applying this to that. So use the time to do that. I expect you to be doing something that's going to be productive. If you're not, I can go get the textbooks that Mr. Smith suggested for industrial tech timber, in which you can answer the questions to the textbooks, or you can start trying to work on your assessment task using this technique. I'll let you figure out which one's probably going to be the most efficient thing to do at this point. Okay? So I'll leave it at that.